The sun had already set by the time I reached the old, abandoned mansion at the edge of town. I had heard stories about the place since I was a child. Whispers of shadows that moved on their own, eerie lights in the dead of night, and chilling screams that echoed through the empty halls. I had always dismissed these tales as mere urban legends, the product of overactive imaginations and a love for the macabre. But as I stood there, staring up at the dilapidated structure, a shiver ran down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this place than met the eye. Determined to uncover the truth, I had decided to spend the night in the mansion. Armed with a flashlight, a camera, and a healthy dose of skepticism, I pushed open the creaking front door and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, and the once grand entrance hall was now in a state of disrepair. Wallpaper peeled from the walls, and the grand staircase that led to the upper floors was missing several steps. Despite the state of decay, there was a certain elegance to the mansion, a reminder of a time long past. As I explored the lower floors, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Every creak and groan of the old building sent chills down my spine, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I tried to dismiss these feelings as the product of my own imagination, but as the night wore on, it became increasingly difficult to do so. The deeper I ventured into the mansion, the colder the air became, as if the very walls were absorbing the warmth from my body. My breath turned visible in the dim light of my flashlight, and every exhale seemed to echo through the vast, empty halls. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional groan of the old building settling on its foundations. I decided to explore the living room, hoping to find some clues about the mansion's past. The room was large, with high ceilings and a grand fireplace at one end. The remnants of luxurious furniture lay scattered around, covered in a thick layer of dust. I could almost imagine the room in its heyday, filled with laughter and the soft murmur of conversation. But now it was nothing more than a ghost of its former self. As I moved through the room, my flashlight caught something in the corner. It was a portrait hanging crookedly on the wall. I stepped closer to get a better look, and my heart skipped a beat. The portrait was of a young woman, her eyes staring directly into mine with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. There was something off about her expression, a mix of sadness and anger that made me uneasy. I quickly turned away, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, but it was too late. The temperature in the room dropped even further, and I could feel the presence of something unseen. My breaths became short and shallow as the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, but the nagging feeling in the back of my mind told me otherwise. I decided to leave the living room, hoping to find solace in the other parts of the mansion. But as I turned to leave, I heard a soft whisper behind me, so faint that I could barely make it out. "Help me!" The voice was filled with sorrow and desperation, sending a wave of terror through my body. I spun around, my flashlight scanning the room, but there was no one there. The portrait on the wall seemed to stare back at me with even greater intensity, and I knew I had to get out of there. I stumbled back, my breaths coming in ragged gasps as I made my way to the door. The temperature continued to drop, and I could see my breath in front of me, swirling in the air like ghostly apparitions. I felt the presence of something unseen following me, its icy breath on the back of my neck. I made it out of the living room and back into the entrance hall, my heart pounding in my chest. The temperature slowly began to rise, and I could feel the oppressive presence fading away. But the feeling of being watched remained, stronger than ever. I knew I had to continue my exploration, to uncover the secrets of the mansion and put an end to the shadows that haunted it. But as I took a deep breath and steadied myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone in this dark, forgotten place. My heart was still racing as I left the entrance hall, the eerie whisper from the living room replaying in my mind. "Help me." The voice was so full of sorrow, so desperate. I couldn't just ignore it, could I? But at the same time, the rational part of my brain was screaming at me to leave, to get as far away from this mansion as possible. Taking a deep breath, I tried to steady my nerves. I had come here for answers, and I wasn't going to leave until I found them. Clutching my flashlight tighter, I made my way towards the grand staircase. The missing steps seemed to taunt me, a stark reminder of the mansion's decay. As I ascended the staircase, the air grew colder again, the oppressive silence returning. Each step seemed to echo through the halls, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The shadows seemed to dance in the corners of my vision, and I had to constantly remind myself that it was just a trick of the light. Reaching the top of the stairs, I found myself in a long hallway, doors lining either side. The wallpaper here was just as faded and peeling as it was downstairs, and the carpet was worn thin. I tried each door as I went, but they were all locked or jammed shut, all except for one. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a room that seemed untouched by time. The furniture was still intact, and there were no signs of the decay that plagued the rest of the mansion. It was as if this room had been frozen in time, a snapshot of the past. My relief at finding a room untouched by the decay was short-lived, however. The temperature in the room dropped rapidly, and I could see my breath in front of me once again. The feeling of being watched was stronger than ever, and I could feel a presence in the room with me. That's when the whispers started. Soft and faint at first, they grew louder and more persistent, surrounding me on all sides. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was pleading, desperate, just like the voice from the living room. I spun around, my flashlight sweeping across the room, but there was no one there. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and I felt a hand on my shoulder, icy cold and sending shivers down my spine. I jerked away, stumbling back towards the door. The whispers followed me, filling my ears with their sorrowful plea. I ran from the room, slamming the door behind me, and the whispers stopped abruptly, leaving only the sound of my ragged breathing and pounding heart. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath, my mind racing. What was happening in this mansion? Who were these voices, and what did they want from me? I knew I had to find answers, but the fear was threatening to overwhelm me. I felt like I was teetering on the edge, one step away from falling into madness. But I couldn't leave, not yet, not until I had found out the truth. With my heart still racing and the whispering echoes fading away in my ears, I pushed myself off the wall, determined to uncover the mysteries of this mansion. The chilling encounters had only fueled my need for answers, and I knew that I couldn't leave until I had unraveled the truth. My next destination was what appeared to be the study. The room was filled with dusty old books and papers scattered about, a once grand desk sitting in the center. As I entered, the air grew tense, and I felt the familiar drop in temperature. But this time, I steeled myself, ready to face whatever came next. I began to sift through the papers, finding old letters and diary entries from the previous occupants of the mansion. The more I read, the clearer the picture became. The mansion once belonged to a wealthy family, their lives filled with luxury and grandeur. But amidst the opulence, there was a sense of sadness, a longing for something more. The youngest daughter, Elizabeth, seemed to be at the center of it all. Her entries spoke of loneliness and isolation, her words filled with a deep-seated sorrow. She wrote of strange occurrences within the mansion, shadows that moved on their own, and whispers in the dark, mirroring my own experiences. As I delved deeper into her life, I discovered the tragic end that befell her. Elizabeth had died in the mansion, her life cut short in her prime. The entry stopped abruptly, and the tone of the other family members' letters changed. The mansion was filled with grief, the shadows of the past lingering in every corner. I knew then that I had to find Elizabeth's room, hoping to connect with her spirit and find the answers I was searching for. Using the information I gathered from the study, I navigated the winding halls of the mansion, the feeling of being watched growing stronger with every step. Finally, I found it, Elizabeth's room. The moment I stepped inside, I felt a rush of cold air, and the whispers returned, this time more coherent, more urgent. "Help me. the voice pleaded, echoing around the room. Find the truth, set me free. The desperation in the voice tugged at my heart, and I knew I couldn't ignore her plea. I had to help her. Elizabeth, I called out tentatively, my voice echoing in the room. Is that you? Yes, the voice replied, softer now, but filled with an aching sadness. Please, help me. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Tell me what happened. Tell me how I can help you. And so she did. She told me of her life, of the loneliness and sorrow that filled her days. She told me of the night she died, the truth behind the tragedy. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a simple twist of fate. It was something darker, something more sinister. And as she spoke, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, and I knew what I had to do. Elizabeth's voice filled the room, her story unraveling as I listened intently. She spoke of a forbidden love, a relationship her family would never have approved of. She met him in secret, in the very room I was standing in. Their love a shining light in her otherwise lonely existence. But their secret couldn't stay hidden forever. Her family found out, and in their rage, they locked her away in the mansion, cutting her off from the world she longed to be a part of. Desperate and alone, she thought her love would come to rescue her, but he never did. One fateful night, overwhelmed by despair and a sense of betrayal, Elizabeth took her own life. But her spirit couldn't find rest, not when the truth about her death was hidden, not when she was painted as a victim of a tragic accident. I need you to find him. Elizabeth's voice broke through my thoughts, her tone pleading. I need you to find out why he never came for me. I nodded, my resolve strengthening. I will, Elizabeth. I will find out the truth for you. As I left her room, the temperature in the mansion returned to normal, and the oppressive feeling lifted, as if the mansion itself was sighing in relief. But I knew I couldn't rest yet, not until I had found out the truth about Elizabeth's lover. The next few hours were spent in the town's archives, digging through old newspapers and records. The more I searched, the clearer the picture became. Elizabeth's lover was from a rival family, their love a modern-day Romeo and Juliet. And just like the tragic play, their story did not have a happy ending. I discovered a series of letters exchanged between Elizabeth and her lover. His last letter spoke of a plan to run away together, to leave their feuding families behind and start anew. But he never showed up, and the letter she wrote in response, filled with heartbreak and betrayal, was never sent. With the truth in hand, I returned to the mansion, making my way back to Elizabeth's room. I found him, I told her, my voice soft. He never received your last letter. He thought you had changed your mind. A silence filled the room, heavy and poignant. Thank you, Elizabeth's voice finally broke through, softer now, and filled with a bittersweet relief. Thank you for helping me find the truth. I could feel her presence beginning to fade, the weight of her sorrow lifting. Find peace, Elizabeth, I whispered, just as her presence disappeared completely, leaving the room feeling lighter, warmer. I left the mansion, the first rays of dawn breaking through the horizon. The shadows of the forgotten were no longer lingering in the halls, the mansion finally at rest. As I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of closure. I had come to the mansion seeking answers, seeking the truth. And while the journey had been terrifying, it had also been rewarding. I had helped a lost soul find peace, and in doing so, I had laid the shadows of the forgotten to rest. The mansion, once a place of sorrow and shadows, stood silent against the rising sun, its dark history finally put to rest. I walked away, the weight of the night's events heavy on my shoulders. But there was a sense of closure, a sense of relief that filled the air. In the weeks that followed, the story of Elizabeth and her tragic love unfolded in the town. People spoke in hushed tones about the secrets of the mansion, about the whispers that once filled its halls. But with the truth now out in the open, the mansion lost its ominous aura, becoming just another part of the town's history. I would occasionally visit, paying my respects to Elizabeth and the other lost souls that once lingered there. The mansion, now a silent guardian of the past, stood as a reminder that even in darkness, there can be light, even in sorrow, there can be peace. The whispers that once haunted the mansion had now turned into whispers of gratitude, whispers of closure. Elizabeth's story, once a tale of tragedy, had now become a story of redemption, a story of a lost soul finally finding her way home. And as I stood there in the quiet of the mansion, I realized that I had been a part of something greater than myself. I had faced the shadows, uncovered the truth, and in doing so, I had helped heal the wounds of the past. The mansion, now free from the chains of its dark history, stood tall and proud, its secrets laid bare for the world to see. The shadows of the forgotten were no more, their stories told, their voices heard. And as I left the mansion for the last time, I couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment, a sense of completion. I had started this journey seeking answers, seeking closure, and now, with the whispers of the past laid to rest, I had found it. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the stories of the past, and as I walked away, I knew that the shadows of the forgotten would forever be a part of me. A reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, always a chance for redemption. And with that, the story of the mansion, the shadows of the forgotten, came to an end. Were you haunted by the shadows of the forgotten? Smash that like button if you dared to brave the shadows, and hit subscribe with the bell for more chilling tales. Join us and keep the mystery alive. Stay haunted.